Sorry, sorry. Either. Well, I'm going to be in. You know what? Richmond is going to have to follow kind of instructions because I was so I wanted to make sure that everybody, since everybody's using Windows, Ruby is really supposed to be run on Macs, but since everybody's running Windows, I made sure that I was kind of practicing on that. I put everything on that. So I so I'm gonna say again.
I'm not sure if this is more of a question for Alan. Is there a difference between the command prompt terminal and PowerShell? Like, should we be using one over the other?
PowerShell came after the Windows DOS terminal. So PowerShell can do all the Windows DOS terminal stuff and a whole lot more. So if you're in either way, you're fine.
Okay.
All right. Yeah, I quit the stream, but hopefully they can hear me again. So I don't know if you guys can see the Windows screen. I don't even. I pretty much installed everything on Windows because I wanted to make sure that I'm helping everybody. The only thing I don't have on Windows is of course the software we're using to stream. So again, if you look in Slack under announcements, you will have the instructions there. Hopefully everybody made sure that it works, you're up to speed, and you're going to be able to follow along. But before we get started with the actual language and the framework, wanted to talk about Ruby in general. So what is Ruby? And I have a little definition here. It's a dynamic, interpreted, reflective, object-oriented, general-purpose programming language designed, developed in the mid-90s. It supports multiple programming paradigms, including functional, object-oriented, and imperative. It also has a dynamic type system. So that's a lot right there. So let's try to unpack it a little bit. It is dynamic. So you guys know based on 6 weeks of instruction what that means. Anybody want to help me out? Yes, Emma, the types can change. So as opposed to
Static.
which would be
Non-changing, or
give me an example.
an application just on the web browser, or is that be a different type of static?
You can't. So if you say x equals 5.
I was looking for C sharp here.
Int x equals 5.
Yeah, so
You
it's
can't do
yes, it is loosey goosey when it comes to types. It is interpreted as opposed to compiled, and let's see, reflective, which means that it has and Ali or Harper would be more better suited to do a deep dive on it, but it changes its behavior at runtime, if that makes sense. Object-oriented, we all know what that is from weeks of C# and ASP.NET training, and so it basically runs on the middle tier, and it is a very popular language. And the question is why? Why is it so popular? Why are we even teaching it? If since Ali and Harper like to talk about it as less than perfect. And so if you guys read the article, or for those of you who haven't read the article that I sent out about it, about the Rails doctrine, there's a couple of things to know about it. Number one, that Ruby itself was built to be optimized for programmer happiness. So this is the core motivation behind Ruby, and this certainly translates into Ruby, into Rails as well. Rails is the framework. Ruby is the language. You can contrast it with a lot of different languages in terms of how is it built for programmer happiness. It is very expressive. It has a lot lot of conventions, but it doesn't. It allows programmers to make mistakes. It kind of the quote they use is that they give you just enough hanging rope. Um, it's other languages are um, they restrict a lot of things. They limit you in the number of keywords and constructs, whereas Ruby allows you to just run free with them. Another tenet of this Ruby or Rails doctrine is convention over configuration, and what that means is, as they put it, you are not a beautiful and unique snowflake. It's postulated that by giving up vain individuality, you can leapfrog the toils of mundane decisions and make faster progress in areas that really matter. It is baked into Rails. Convention over configuration. They try to make it as easy for developers as possible, but by helping you out, and the way they can do that, the way they can accomplish that, is by relying on these conventions. So there's a lot of there are a lot of things that are happening in the background, kind of the Ruby magic, and the way they accomplish it is by having these conventions, and of course the idea is also, going back to programmer happiness, is to save you from having to go through all or too many configurations. Yes, we have a question. We have a troll here.
You're talking about configuration and convention. What's an example of what do you mean by that? Because we've never seen Ruby. We're curious about what that means.
We'll get into it. I don't know. You tell me. Ali's asking, what's a good example of convention over configuration? And
Are you talking about like naming conventions?
naming conventions are one of them, and it's. Let me get back to that when we are actually looking at examples. But yes, there's certain ways that you name things, and then in the background, as things are being generated, it will, things as simple as what's plural, what's singular, will actually make a difference, because Ruby will pick up on it. Okay, this third doctrine, the menu is omakase. I hope I pronounced that right. And it's basically, I don't know how many of you are familiar with the term omakase. Menu is omakase. It's basically when the chef decides on the menu for you, because you don't know what's good, they do, so you just kind of trust them. And this ties directly with convention over configuration. So you let essentially others kind of assemble the stack for you. It is at odds with a lot of programming traditions, which center around presenting all the tools and options to the programmer and leaving it up to them. But again, this is part of the reason why Ruby has been growing so fast. No one paradigm. It's ideologically flexible. They bring in good ideas all the time from other programming languages and other frameworks, and vice versa. They come up with their own, and then those get borrowed by other frameworks. Exalt beautiful code. This is one of the tenets of Ruby and Rails. It is meant to be as you can get in a programming language. Provide sharp knives. There's no handcuffs in Ruby. You can really do some damage as a developer. So even though it's a lot of things are done for you, but because of that, there's a necessity to kind of enable programmers to to get around things. So so it does not protect you in that sense. You have the it's the power that was that in many languages feel like it's too much power for mere mortal developers. You actually have it in Ruby. They value integrated systems and progress over stability, which is that's one of the biggest, one of the most controversial tenets, one of the most controversial doctrines in Rails is that they just don't care. They will erase everything and redo it if a better way comes along, and they really don't care too much about the pains and heartaches. And apparently this was before I ever even looked at Ruby, but apparently the great Rails migration of 2.x to 3 still lingers in the scar tissue of many a Ruby developer. And they push up a big tent, which with so many controversial ideas, it kind of has to be flexible enough to accommodate all those different approaches and ideologies. So so what are the pros and cons? I mean, obviously we have both Ali and Harper have many times expressed Sightsource's preference for things like Elixir. So why even mess with talking about Ruby? And if
We actually write more Ruby than we do Elixir.
we do write more Ruby than we do Elixir at the moment, but well, and that actually goes to my point. So if everybody wants to do a little exercise with me, open up a browser, and actually not with me, just you do it. Open up a browser, and Richmond 2. Go to Indeed.com. And in the keywords box, type in. Let's start with C#. Just type in C#. And just hit enter. Just tell me how many results come up. In the 771. Did you restrict it by location?
I have 30,000.
That's more like 30,700 C# jobs just on that site right now. Okay, type in Angular. See what comes up with that. 14,640. Okay, type in Elixir.
329.
About 300. Now type in Ruby.
Ruby or Ruby on Rails? 22,542.
20. Okay, so 22,000. Now you guys understand kind of why we covered C#. Well, aside from the ability to actually learn, or it being such a pristine representation of object-oriented programming, which was a new concept to many of you at the time. That's the reason why, especially starting out, why you want to learn C#. That's the reason why you want to learn Angular, and that is the reason why you want to learn Ruby. Elixir is fantastic, but it's fantastic for your own projects, or once it catches on more, yeah, it's going to be fantastic, and people sooner or later will see the value and the benefit. But as of right now, especially as an entry-level programmer, as an entry-level developer, you're going to want to learn technologies that are in demand, that are going to afford you the ability to jump in and get a junior spot because people are desperate for you. So so that's the reason as to why. Go ahead.
Is there a difference between Ruby and Ruby on Rails?
Ruby is the language. The question was, is there a difference between? Well, he's close enough. You can probably hear him. Yes, I mean Ruby is the language. Rails is the framework that allows. It's a development framework that we'll dig into more. But that's the main
That's all I
distinction.
want to know.
So why? So this goes in, but why is this? Why is it so? Why is it so darn popular? Why is it so much in demand? And there's a number of reasons. Not the least of which is that it has a very low learning curve. It's very easy to get. It's easy to understand. It's easy to read. It's easy to get ramped up on. Obviously, just like in any other language or framework, there's the rabbit hole goes pretty deep. But in terms of getting started, it's about as fast as it gets. And so, obviously, with the shortage of developers all over the world, something like this would have tremendous appeal. Because instead of competing with other firms for a limited pool of talent, you can just ramp up yourself, or you can ramp up a few people. The best industry standards. Ruby on Rails is a very opinionated framework. It means that it guides you into their way of doing things, and they promote the best standards and practices of web development. They are very big on DRY, which stands for don't repeat yourself. Absolutely. Separation of concerns, maintainability. As I mentioned before, convention over configuration. All these things are there to help developers, promote developer happiness. It utilizes the MVC model, which is somebody else, somebody
View control.
model view controller. It's yeah, so it is a very robust language and framework, which is again one of the reasons why it's so popular, and all these add up to speed of development. So you can develop on Rails very rapidly. It's primarily thought of by most professional developers, from what I hear. It's thought of as primarily a prototyping language, and there's a lot to it because of that high velocity application development. It is ideal for prototyping, but there are a lot of large applications that are written on Rails. GitHub, which is something that you guys use now almost every day. GitHub is written in Rails in Ruby on Rails. So is, I think, Airbnb. There are several major applications. Sorry?
I think Airbnb switched recently.
Okay, but outdated information. Well, and that does make sense too, because because there's a reason why, if you Ellie and Harper are not making it up. They're, beyond a certain size, you do start to have to utilize tools and kind of find workarounds. And I can't see Ellie's head, but I'm hoping that he's nodding. It does. So it doesn't surprise me, but the fact that they were able to get to the size that they did using Ruby means that it is a big boy language. You can write actually larger applications in it. Another advantage, or another reason for its popularity, is that it has a very vibrant community and a very powerful tool set. These are people who are, as those of you who read that article know, who are devoted to Ruby, who love Ruby, and who love Rails. Fanatics, as Ali put it. And sure enough, I mean, I'm not gonna argue with that. I'm just saying that because they are fanatics, it is their baby. They will make sure that everything, every tool works the way it should. That there's that they devote themselves to perfecting and keeping up to date all the Ruby gems out there, and so it has a very powerful tool set that is always expanding, especially because of the popularity of Ruby. And that is again that is a big advantage that Ruby has, a big positive that that is explains and supports and furthers its popularity. It does have some disadvantages, as you've heard many a times. It does have some runtime speed and performance issues. It for most applications it is not going to be noticeable, but beyond a certain size, yes, it's definitely well.
You can write any application in any language. You just might have to work harder to make it faster and stuff.
Ali just said you can write any application in any language. You just might have to work a little bit harder to make it work faster. But that is definitely a disadvantage, and it also actually ties back to one of the advantages. It is not their main priority. I guess they figured that it was fast enough. It's worth prioritizing that the language, the framework, computers, everything was fast enough to where those microseconds or milliseconds of efficiency didn't justify the deprioritization of programmer happiness. So yeah, they'll put in an extra layer of some tools to help you out. It might affect performance, but you as a developer are going to be a lot happier for it because you don't have to worry about it. You don't have to spend your time making tiny decisions that you do with every application. You're just kind of relying on experts saying, yeah, I'm just going to install this gem. It'll do it for me, and I don't have to worry about every aspect of how to write a user account validation. It's just going to be kind of I don't have to worry about whether there's an @ in the email address. I don't have to worry about the format of this, that, the other thing. It's just there's a gem. I'll just put it in. Yeah, it's going to be extra code, but I'm happy. So it is another disadvantage is lack of flexibility. Convention over configuration. There's a lot of things. Ruby on Rails. It will do a lot of heavy lifting for you, but in every application, there's going to be things that are going to be unique to that application, and a lot of times that can present some challenges because you'll have to figure out workarounds around things that Ruby expect or that Rails expects, and so there's a little bit of a lack of flexibility. Okay, I just realized that all these notifications that I keep ignoring are Slack, so let me jump in there for a second while I continue. Okay, thank you. So another disadvantage, which also again ties in with one of the advantages. A couple of people read the thing. So it's high cost of wrong decisions early in development. So yes, it does a lot of things for you. Yes, it's easy to ramp up on. Yes, it's also easy to make early mistakes that then Rails will build on, because it will build on whatever you. It asks for very little from you up front, but then and then it builds on that. So if you make mistakes early on, that can definitely cascade and add up. So bottom line conclusion, Airbnb may have switched, but you have GitHub, Basecamp, Zendesk, Bloomberg. There are a lot of big applications. It is, as I said, as David would put it, it is a big boy language. It is very, very popular. I would say let it be a personal preference. You know, try it on for size. A lot of people fall in love with it. A lot of people don't care for it. But from your perspective, starting out, you might not have a choice. It's popular enough to where you're going to be presented with the choice of. There's a contract for C#. There's another one for Ruby on Rails. You know, you choose. And as much as you would like to run with Elixir, it's unless you come work for us, it might not be on the table. Yes, sir.
Mantra for a lot of developers these days is Ruby by day, Elixir by night.
Ali just said that a mantra for a lot of developers these days is Ruby by day, Elixir by night, and yeah, that sounds like a good plan. As long as yeah, just remember if you're making you know, the rent during the day or at night. So, but yes, it's a lot of people I think will find it very appealing. Clearly, there's a reason behind the what Ali calls the fanatics, why they love it so much, and I think that that's probably a good portion of that is probably going to apply to you guys as well. All right, so that was the kind of philosophy, the intro, and now we're going to jump into Ruby itself, and we're going to have to take a little bit of an early break because I will give it, with Ali and Mudit's help, I will give it one more shot to try to jump on Windows.
Can you just do an exercise, introduce them to the syntax, and then take 15 minutes, and we'll come back and try again?
All right. I can do. We can do a very quick one. Let me know if you guys can see this. Let's see. Where's the preferences? Preferences. Let's see if. All right, just so you guys can see it, because I can't even see this. There we go. That's better. All right, so is it going to work? Yeah, as I said, I tried everything on Windows, thinking that since everybody's on Windows, it will work best, even though it works better on Macs. So they built it on it. They built it on Linux. So correct. Sorry.
Don't care about where it works on Windows.
All right, so just. All right, so puts hello Ruby, and if things worked well, but I don't think that active Ruby shell started, because otherwise it should have done. Okay, all right, now let's just go to break. I use Visual Studio Code, so hopefully everyone has that. Ali uses Sublime. I think it really doesn't matter. Harper uses Atom, so yeah, I think it plays well with most everything, and because of its popularity, I think most tools have extensions and other little packages that will help you with Ruby. All right, so we're going to stop the stream. We're going to go, let's see, right now it is 9:16. Wait, before we do.
stream for the next 10, 15 minutes. This is set up there. We've got,
Yeah, let's just do a 10-minute break. We're gonna try to set this up so that we can get into some actual Ruby. All right, we'll be back in 10. Right now it's 9:17, so well, let's